So how did we make this broader crossing possible? We first of all had to learn to forgive. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when I studied how white Afrikaans kids become racially wounded, I discovered something very serious. I discovered that if I went home and the only people I knew were white and Afrikaans speaking, and that when there was a braai at our home after the game at Loftus, that the people there were making K jokes. And when I went on Sunday to the Dutch Reformed Church, which by the way there is opposite Loftus, you seldom know the difference. And I hear that the children of Israel are compared to the Afrikaners. And I hear that God sanctioned a whole lot of the crap that went down in this country. I cannot guarantee you, and I tell you this with an open heart today, that I wouldn't have become like those kids. So you can't blame the children alone. They must bear responsibility. But you can't blame the children alone. When they came into my university, they were put into white races and to black races. That was the reason we allowed them back into our university. It's because the university said, these are bad apples. I said, oh no, you're all bad apples. We are all bad apples. Because we institutionalized racism, and now you want to make it out that these are 4 bad kids. I'm sorry. We must all ask forgiveness. And even though I wasn't there at the time, I stood up in October 2009 and said, I ask forgiveness on behalf of my university, because it's now my university. I can't run away from it. And the moment we learned to forgive, ladies and gentlemen, the response from the other side was overwhelmingly powerful. I couldn't deal with the racism if I didn't start with a sense of complicity on my side. I have told white people around this country that because I lost property on both sides of the family, we went from middle class on my mother's side to deep poor on the Cape Flats. And that property is still with white people in Lansdowne and in Montague. My grandfather went blind for the rest of his life after he lost the family property opposite the Avalon Hotel in Montague, and we had to move into a crummy area. And for many years, especially after I came under the influence of a wonderful man called Steve Beaker, I hated white people. I never start by telling white people they're racist. I start telling them about my racism, about my prejudice, about my brokenness. And I apologize, like I do right now to everyone here. I apologize for hating you for so long. I'm ashamed of myself. I cannot change other people unless I change myself first. And I tell my students that every single day. I don't start from the premise that I'm strong. I start from the premise that I'm weak, that I'm incomplete, that I struggle with stuff. Even on my best days, I have to deal with my ghosts. I need to tell you that. And even though I've come a long way, I think, I hope, I look into the eyes of the perpetrator, knowing that if I was born with the wrong skin, who knows? I might have done the same terrible stuff. So I start from the notion of brokenness. And for those of you who read the Christian Bible, there's a beautiful thing I only understood for the first time. We grew up in evangelical Christianity, but a lot of that stuff I didn't understand. I only understand it now. And there's this beautiful line by the Apostle Paul in which he says, my strength is made perfect in weakness. Isn't that beautiful? It's paradoxical. It doesn't make sense. How can you be strong when you're weak? But that's the point. It is when you open yourself up. And you know, young people, you can't lie to them. They can see a hypocrite a mile away. Your children can see a hypocrite a mile away. Let me tell you something. They don't expect us to be perfect. You want to know how we changed that university? We didn't tell them we could. We started off with the notion that we all are struggling. That is my model of leadership. I'm not right and you're wrong. I'm not good and you're evil. It's precisely the opposite. And I find in my leadership, in the poorest, most racist communities in this country, and trust me, I've been there, on weekends with men's groups, with women's groups, where poor people, poor white people, People who've just lost members to farm murders. Yugi, Tromsburg, Fitzburg. I've been there. Let me tell you something. If you start off with the notion of the accusatory finger as a black person, you've lost your audience. If you start off with the notion that you yourself are broken, you will be amazed at how people respond and talk about stuff. I heard it at this table here. It's something I've heard everywhere in the country. I'm so tired just because of my skin to always be regarded as guilty. That's not how you change a country. And that's what I tell my students every single day.